that remains so fiercely in American lore, it's actually really funny to me that the Pony Express only lasted for about 18 or 19 months. Like the riders and my little brother, they're small but memorable. It's strange to realize how small technology has made the world. We can travel across the country in just a few hours in a plane, or it'll take a bit longer in a car, depending on which country you're in. No points for guessing which country I'm in. We can communicate almost instantaneously from anywhere in the world, and possibly outside of it. I'll have to look into that when I research NASA. Some people even get impatient when an Amazon package takes more than a couple of days to arrive. But back in the day, the world was a lot bigger. Getting a message from the east to the west coast would take months. Traveling would take months. And some pioneer companies that started out too late in the year would find themselves unexpectedly caught in winter storms, like the infamous Donna Reed party. Nowadays, you can drive from New York to San Francisco in a few days, or fly in a few hours in these weird magic thingies we have called airplanes. Back in the day, it would take months for mail to get across the country. If you were on the West Coast, by the time you got the news from the East Coast, it was a little less new than one might hope. And as the gold rush incentivized people to move west, there grew an increased demand for mail and news and packages and things to be able to be delivered more quickly. Look, we're known for a lot of things here in the States, but patience and sanity aren't any of them. Clearly, something had to be done. And, well, several somethings were done, actually. One of them was the Pony Express. And others quickly made it pretty obsolete. The idea of a horseback relay service didn't originate in the US, but since when has that ever stopped us from utilizing a good idea? It said that Genghis Khan used such a system, and I have no idea if he was the first person to do it either, but seems to me that somebody looked at the system and went, but we could do that, but better. And they did. A freighting company decided to add an express delivery system to their previously existing system, which relied more on stagecoaches and things. And they called it the Central Overland California and Pikes Peak Express Company, which we all just call the Pony Express because the COC and PP is just ridiculous, especially in the modern era. It took some finagling and work to get the system settled, but by the time they did, they were able to get mail from Missouri to California in 10 days, 8 days, 7 days, and 17 hours with President Lincoln's March 4th address, which is still longer than Amazon Prime takes to deliver my shoes that still don't fit. But to be fair, they didn't have cars or airplanes, and that's still a lot faster than I can do pretty much anything with a horse besides maybe fall off it. The relay system had way stations where riders could change horses so that the horses didn't just get run to death. Because believe it or not, a horse can't actually run for days on end. Hollywood lied to you. I'm sorry. According to my notes, riders were required to weigh less than 120 pounds. They carried up to 20 pounds of mail and 20 pounds of equipment. Riders ranged from teenagers to their 40s, which I'm given to believe was considered to be a lot older than it is nowadays, where it's just kind of middle-aged whatever. Back then, they had a lower life expectancy, so congratulations, you made it to 40. What's your secret? There were somewhere between 80 to 100 riders, plus all of the way station minders. These employees took an oath, which not all of them kept properly regarding their employ. While I'm in the company of A majors, I agree not to use profane language, not to gamble, not to get drunk, not to treat animals cruelly, and not to do anything else that is incompatible with the conduct of a gentleman. And I agree, if I violate any of the above conditions, to accept my discharge without any pay for my services. It was a hard, demanding job, but they got paid $50 a month, or around $1,926 a month in 2025 money, and they got a room and board out of the deal, which is pretty sweet. Some riders were also given a Bible. The horses were selected for endurance and speed, and like the oath said, they were required to be treated well during their service. The mail was kept in special locked boxes on a sort of over-saddle compartment thing, which could be quickly removed and replaced onto a different saddle as they do for a quick relay switch. These rides would continue through the winter, although a few days would be added onto the delivery time for inclement weather. The first rides were published in the news, and it was made a very big deal out of it. As things go, despite saying the rider would leave at 5, he left at closer to 7:15. These are PM numbers, both of them. When he arrived in Sacramento, he was greeted by a mounted escort and cannon fire. If you know the musical The Music Man, there's a scene where the entire town turns out to see that this delivery wagon has come, and they're all super excited about it, have a whole song and dance number. Nowadays, we see a mail truck and try not to get stuck behind it in its frequent stops. They were probably happier back then. Bring back getting excited over stuff, dang it. No, seriously, being all jaded and bored with everything isn't cool. It might look cool, but it doesn't make you any happier, so why bother doing it? Well, in the vein of folk tales and legends, which the Pony Express has kind of turned into, we do tend to aggrandize things. But the switches were actually fairly casual. Yes, they were working quickly, but the riders would take the time to stretch their legs, eat something, probably drink water, all those regular human things that we tend to forget about when we turn things into legends. However, in the vein of mythologizing our history, we have Mark Twain claiming that the transfer of rider and mailbag was made in the twinkling of an eye, and that while riding in the stagecoach, they heard only a whiz and a hail, and the swift phantom of the desert was gone before we could get our heads out the windows. A tale with perhaps less artistic license than Mr. Twain's retelling, and a bit more historical reliability, claims that a rider was warned that by some friendly Indians that there had been a trap laid to try to catch him to see why he was going so quickly. Because obviously it had to be something important, right? It was the mail. It's just the mail. Usually. However, there were other things they carried which would make history. Writer William Campbell said that the hardest ride he ever made was while carrying President Lincoln's inaugural address. He claimed that it was things like this that helped him and the other riders feel that they were helping to make history. However, as technology advanced, the Pony Express quickly became history. Telegraphs were already in use by the time the Pony Express was started, but as telegraph lines and railway tracks were laid out through to the west, and as government contracts went to different companies, the Pony and Rider soon became a memory. However, people remain fascinated with the Pony Express, and every year people will commemorate it by riding along an approximation of the trail as close as we can manage, using cell phones and radios to share their journey. So it was and is that we bade farewell and fondly remember the little horse who shoved the continent behind his hoofs so easily.